They called her Mimi. But most days, even her name was swallowed by silence. Her brothers pushed her aside. Her mother forgot to count her plate. The village children played, yet no one called her to join. She was the child always left behind, the forgotten one. But fate has a strange way of choosing its heroes. When the rain ceased, and the land cracked with hunger, the elders searched for answers in the sky and the river. What they did not know was that salvation would rise from the smallest voice, from the shadows, from the child they had overlooked. Mimi, the forgotten child. In a quiet village called Oluwade, surrounded by tall palm trees and red earth roads, there lived a little girl named Mimi. She was small for her age, her eyes bright like morning stars, but her spirit often weighed heavy. Mimi was the last of 5 children. Her father, a farmer, worked from sunrise to sunset, and her mother spent most of her time attending to Mimi's older brothers and sisters. Somehow, in the busy rhythm of family life, Mimi was often forgotten. When food was served, her plate was always the last to be filled. When clothes were sewn for the new year, hers were always hand-me-downs. When stories were told at night, she sat in the shadows, listening, but never being called to sit close. Her siblings loved her in their own way, but they treated her as though she was too small, too quiet, too unimportant. And so, Mimi grew in silence, her heart hungry for love, her spirit yearning for recognition. What no one knew was that Mimi had a gift. She listened, not just to words, but to the earth itself. She could hear the whispers of the wind when it brushed against the banana leaves. She could hear the sigh of the river when it rose at night. She could even hear the stories in the footsteps of the elders as they walked across the village square. Mimi often sat by the old baobab tree at the edge of the village, speaking softly to it. And though no one else could hear, the baobab answered. It told her about the past, about the ancestors, about the strength hidden in forgotten souls. One year, the village faced a terrible drought. The sky turned hard and brass-like, refusing to open. The wells dried up, the streams shrank, and the farms yielded almost nothing. The elders gathered under the iroko tree, worried and desperate. The chief said, "Our ancestors are angry. Something has been forgotten. We must find what is missing before we all perish." The villagers brought offerings, they sang old songs, they danced in the moonlight, but the rain did not come. Hunger began to gnaw at every household. One night, as Mimi lay on her tin mat, she dreamed. In her dream, the baobab tree spoke to her. "Child who has been forgotten, you are the key. The ancestors wait for a voice that has never been heard. Go to the sacred hill and sing the song of truth. Only then will the sky remember the earth." Mimi woke up trembling. She was just a child. Who would believe her? Her parents hardly remembered her at mealtimes. How could she speak before the entire village? But the dream repeated itself for 3 nights. At last, she gathered courage. During the next village meeting, Mimi walked quietly to the center of the square. Everyone was surprised. Children were not supposed to speak when elders gathered. Her eldest brother whispered, "Mimi, go back." Her mother frowned, embarrassed. But Mimi lifted her small voice. "The ancestors spoke to me. They said the rain will not fall until the forgotten is remembered. I am Mimi, the forgotten child. Take me to the sacred hill and let me sing." The people gasped. Some laughed. Others shook their heads. But the chief, an old man with wise eyes, raised his hand. "Let the child speak. For sometimes, the smallest drum carries the loudest message." The next morning, the villagers followed Mimi to the sacred hill. The ground was cracked, and the air was heavy with dust. Mimi walked barefoot, her little steps steady, guided by the whispers of the baobab in her heart. At the top of the hill, she stood still. The villagers watched, waiting. Then Mimi began to sing. Her voice was soft at first, like the rustle of leaves. She sang about being forgotten, about sitting in shadows, about waiting for love that never came. She sang of pain, of loneliness, but also of hope, that even the smallest seed could grow into a mighty tree. As she sang, her voice grew stronger, carried by the wind. The sky darkened. The clouds gathered. The earth trembled as though it recognized her song. Then, with a great roar, the heavens opened. Rain poured down. The villagers danced, laughed, and shouted with joy. But they all knew the truth: it was the forgotten child who had been chosen to bring back life. From that day forward, Mimi was never forgotten again. Her parents wept and hugged her tightly, realizing how blind they had been. Her siblings lifted her onto their shoulders, proud of the sister they had ignored. The chief declared, "Every child in this village is a voice of the ancestors. None shall be forgotten again." Mimi grew into a woman of wisdom, respected not only in her village but in neighboring lands. People came from far and wide to hear her songs, for they carried healing and truth. And whenever children in the village felt overlooked, they would run to Mimi, and she would remind them. Even the forgotten child is remembered by the earth. Even the smallest voice can move the heavens.